Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a rant here for you. One that it's something that's been building up for a while. It's nothing new compared to what everybody else has been saying for a while. Trigger warnings. Hope you get the humor in the picture I picked for this. As many of you know, this is not just something that we're talking about like with books. That's mainly where I'm coming from. It's not in any of my books or any of my comics or anything yet. I feel like it's only a matter of time till we start getting Bibles with this in the front of it. But like we're talking about TV shows and movies and things, especially on streaming where they've begun to edit things and take scenes out and moments and just in general trying to remove movies from history. The censorship is just evil. But specifically talking about trigger warnings, for anybody who doesn't know what this is, if you haven't seen it before on streaming or in books or anything, I'll mainly stick and argue about the ones I see in books. My wife will see them all the time pop up in her books. It's something so fickle and fake and stupid that came from some places like Twitter and, like, in this case nowadays, Blue Sky, and originated from things like Tumblr and Reddit, where essentially you put a list of warnings of things that are in your book content-wise that could potentially bring back trauma to the reader, whoever it may be. And I feel like this is the greatest example ever. And the reason I'm making this rant is because of the fact that it acts like the audience are a bunch of idiots. And frankly, if you think it's required to have a trigger warning in a book, especially the kind you see nowadays, my wife has shown me some we've seen at like Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and stuff, that are just truly shockingly stupid, like cheating in a relationship is in the book as a trigger warning. Usually I understand to a degree the ones that are more severe things, like, like child loss. I could almost get that, but they've gotten to the point now where it's like cursing is in there, or like, again, like the cheating in a relationship thing is in there. That's the kind of trauma we have now expanded the warning trigger list thing to. But trigger warnings in general are just pointless and stupid. And they're for people who think that their audience are idiots. The excuse is for empathy. And in my opinion, it's just pure out, at the end of the day, stupidity and fakery. It's coming from people who do not have an issue with these particular subjects being in the content of their books, but they use it as the excuse to get their audience to look at something. Don't you realize, too, you could be missing out on sales because of something like this? You know? And not that your book has to have the most extreme material in it. Most of the books, it doesn't seem like really have the heaviest of the things that are in the trigger warning, or they're executed so poorly or lightly that what's the point of having a warning in there to begin with? And what irks me the most, right? This is something my wife and I have talked so much about. What's the difference between someone reading your stupid-ass trigger warning list, seeing whatever might have happened to them or someone they know and love, versus reading your book, getting to that portion of the book, deciding it's too much or they don't want to live through that, and then they skim that part of the book or just skip over that chapter, that scene, whatever? What's the difference between the effects they could feel traumatically and psychologically from reading it within the story or watching it in the movie or the show versus seeing it listed pretty blatantly, pretty directly on a list? What's the difference? There's not a difference at the end of the day. And it's infuriating. I feel like the older I get, the more I'm seeing this pop up everywhere. And it's being excused more and more. It could be anything from racism to sexism to whatever. Obviously, those things are not good things. Obviously, as a Christian, I'm against those things. But I don't need it to be spelled out for it to be a part of your story. If there's a book that takes place in the 1920s, well, damn, because I'm not an idiot, I'd probably assume that's probably going to be somewhere in the book, you know? Especially if it's more of a blue-collar story. If we're talking about something that's like a horror book, especially somebody who has a heavy reputation of writing a lot of rape scenes like Richard Lehman or Stephen King, I think that the audience member should have enough of a brain, especially if they're already a reader, to know that horror and thriller are probably not going to be the genre for them if they don't like that kind of subject matter. By the synopsis on the back of the book, the blurb, whatever, They should be able to get a general idea of what's probably going to happen in that book and not have to pick it up and get into that because it's probably going to be too much for them. The excuse a lot of the time is used about, well, what about newer readers? People who are just getting into reading and they don't know any better, they have traumas and God, whatever. The irritation about that for me is that, again, depending on the type of genre they like, they'll probably stick with that particular material and avoid other materials they don't like. For example, my wife hates horror, cannot stand it. Sometimes she likes mysteries, but not really thrillers because they make her too nervous. So she'll probably look at a book that has more of a girly cover, maybe a female author, typically in her case. I don't think she really reads many males the way she talks about it, but she'd probably stick with that, a more light, girly cover to the book, which isn't always exactly what the book is written like. That's, that just happens. It's a marketing thing. But it's still typically a good representation of what she's getting, right? And it bothers her too, because then, if she sees something that has, skulls and, a guy holding a knife or wearing, a Michael Myers mask or something, she's not going to read that. If she sees, a demonic-looking entity on the front of a cover, she's not going to read that. She's just not interested in that. If she sees something with Venom or Ghost Rider on it, she's for sure not going to read that because she's going to say, hey, this is probably up Michael's alley, not so much my own. Readers are not idiots, new or older. They're just not. Stop treating your audiences, especially as readers, like they're stupid, because they're not. If they're reading a book, they can probably critically think fairly well. They probably know what they like and what they don't like. They don't need your stupid virtue signaling trigger warnings, and that's all this is. Like I said, it goes back to Tumblr, where the beginning of virtue signaling really happened in our current day and age over the last 15 years or so. It began there, it has seeped into culture, it's ruined industry and IP after IP, and medium over and over again in the entertainment industry. Comics, novels, games, the stupidity of these ideas like trigger warnings have ruined everything. There's no arguing about it. The fact that we even have to argue about trigger warnings being so pointless, and being on top of that, like another video I'm about to make here soon, probably not today, maybe this week, I don't know, tropes. Tropes are the exact same issue but in a different way. Tropes are basically spoiling the formula the book is sticking to, but it's still spoiling the book most of the time. And my wife even pointed out to me a lot of female authors in the more popular genres now, like thriller, mystery, erotica, whatever, they're even giving away on the cover of the book that it's a happily ever after ending. That's what they're doing now. So in that tropes rant, I need to cover that too. Hopefully I remember by that time. But you're spoiling your own books. The content of your own books. If I read that there's going to be a rape scene or something, or a child loss, or a miscarriage or something in the trigger warnings on your book, you dumb assholes, you've given away what's going to happen in your book, and I'm assuming the only one or two characters in the book that will probably be pregnant are probably going to be the one with the miscarriage. Do you see how stupid that is? Do you see how much you're ruining your stories for the sake of virtue signaling? For the sake of looking popular to idiots in the communities that don't actually care about your book or anybody else's because more than likely they're so dumb they don't read, why would you want to pitch out something that they want and not something an actual reader could process because they have a fucking brain? And I know what you're going to say. Well, if you're so against it, if you think it's so dumb, why don't you just skip the trigger warnings? That's not the point. It's still there. Why don't you just put a summary of the book in the front of the book too while you're at it? Why don't you just do that? You know what I mean? Save me all the grief of whatever I'm reading. I've noticed I think there was a couple of newer horror writers that I had seen when I glanced through their books doing this. Not super popular people, but kind of that stupid A24 artsy-fartsy crap that you see nowadays get called horror books, and they're really not. Not Stephen King, not people like that, but some of these weirdos you see on Barnes & Noble shelves in the actual horror section that really is nothing like horror all of us liked growing up, and in the 2010s too. It's just shameful, and it's stupid, and it's, frankly, in my opinion, it's pathetic. I can't help but laugh and shake my head when I see these trigger warnings everywhere. And again, when it goes for TV shows and movies and stuff, you are spoiling a lot of the events within there by putting up a trigger warning list. You just are. You can deny it all you want. You can pretend like that's not what's happening, but it is. And your audience aren't stupid. They can think, they can put two and two together. Like I said, if it lists a miscarriage and there's a pregnant character or someone who becomes pregnant as a surprise in the book, there's a good chance we know what's going to happen there. And the sad thing is, too, even things that would suck, like if you had lost a child, right? And you read a book and it made you sad because a character miscarried or something, that's understandable, that's human emotion. But if that person in the story, that character, gets pregnant again, and let's say that this baby, they have the stress of could I lose it again, and then they don't, thank God, you would think that that attempt to give that character and therefore the audience, and maybe someone who's been through this before, hope, you would think that that would be part of the kindling of the human spirit that books used to be able to accomplish, and TV shows and movies used to be able to accomplish before all the characters became such a heavy, loud, obnoxious loudspeaker of a mouthpiece for authors and writers and producers and directors and actors and so on and so on. You would think that'd be the case. So anyway, that's my rant. Trigger warnings are stupid, and frankly, I think you're stupid if you defend putting it into things, especially with how detailed they are nowadays. I don't care about your music playlists you add in there. None of that stuff bothers me. Your extra content, your interviews, depending on the store that's releasing and publishing a version of a book, like a Catherine Cowles book or something, that doesn't bother me at all. Your trigger warnings are stupid. Everyone thinks they're stupid, even if they lie to you and tell you that they think it's cool and that they think it's worth having. So anyway, what do you all think about trigger warnings? Put your thoughts and comments down below. Let me know what you think about it. Have a great, happy Easter, guys. God bless you all. I hope you enjoyed another rant, because I make way too many of them. But I have a lot to complain about, don't I? We live in that kind of day and age. So anyway, thank you guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.